I'm Andrew Berman with the Mortgage News Network. We're here in New York City at the MBA Secondary Conference. Got Jonathan Corr, who's CEO of Ellie. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
So listen, I want to ask you, you guys publish a ton of data out there just because the volume of mortgages that go through your clients' hands. I'm curious, one of the things you publish is there on the insights, the time to get to the closing table. So if I remember correctly, I think we're at 43 days.
Yes.
Last year, we're only at 44 days. What drives, bringing that number down or potentially expanding that number so it's longer? What is the driving force?
Well, I think if you look at things, as we went through last year, the beginning of the year started much higher. Yeah. And part of that was kind of the result of people getting used to TRID, right? Kind of working through that. And then we saw a big spike in demand relative to refinancing. And people tried to do all the business with the resources they had. So with that, it's going to expand the timeline. As we shift to a market that is much more purchase-centric, right? We're dominated by purchase now. It's 65% of the loans. You're going to be, tied to a much tighter timeline, right? Because you got to get that loan closed to be able to get that person in the home. You don't have the flexibility of having it drag on because, that could fall through. So a couple things are going on though. We're seeing one, time start to come down. One, because I think we're seasonally slow. Q1 tends to be seasonally slow. It could tick up a little more as we go into the hotter part of the season, right? Yeah. Q2 and Q3. But at the same time, there's things going to drive it the other way. So more and more people are embracing automation. They're embracing automation on the upfront for the consumer to capture the information. And so that starts to speed up the process, right? They're embracing more aspects of workflow automation and data delivery. We just announced kind of the closing set data delivery that's going to happen to Fannie and Freddie along with Wells Fargo. So those factors are definitely going to see us continue to drive the time to close a loan down. And I think we're going to see that accelerate over the next couple of years.
So listen, obviously if the number's 43, that means half are doing or less, half are doing more. That being said, what can lenders do today with the technology that you guys have to drive those numbers down? So there could be on the less than 43 days.
It's really about using automation, embracing the technology, looking at ways to allow things that can go straight through, go through effectively, basically bubbling up the exceptions to your talented folks, your underwriters, your processing folks to deal with the exceptions. But technology can really allow you to drive down that process and deal with the exceptions so that your averages start to move down. And if you start to embrace things like Consumer Connect, Loan Officer Connect, and capabilities that are built into the workflow, we have customers that are doing things in a much shorter time frame than 40 days. Sure. But I think it will become the norm. I see the industry moving, and I see our customers moving from 40 now. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that as people embrace the automation, our next generation platform, that the average isn't something along the lines of 30 sometime by the end of next year.
So listen, break out that crystal ball. Do you think in 10 years we'll be in single digits?
I think that the thing that is kind of the long pole is, in many ways appraisal, right? Recording. We're still doing those processes with people in a very manual fashion. Valuations take a long time. They're the long part of the pole. We've laid things out and have done analysis of if we could automate X, Y, and Z, what could we bring things down? What's possible? Yeah. Right now, given things that you can't squeeze, the best is about 10 days. Yeah. But I was talking earlier. I've seen people start talking about AVMs again, cascading AVMs, using insurance, using drones to do inspections. Right?
Wow.
And you start to combine those things, right? Using drones, using infrared actually to see inside the walls rather than just depend on an inspector.
Yeah.
If we as an industry can embrace those things, I think we can definitely get down to single digits.
That's phenomenal. And for embracing the millennials, I assume, they want it yesterday, and when you tell them that they have to wait 43 days from after they've given all their information, that's got to be a long time for them.
I think it's a long time for anyone, right? But what I am seeing, and we did a survey, about 3,000 consumers, and it was all the way from 18-year-olds all the way up to 7-year-olds. So all three generations, right? Boomers, Gen Xers, Millennials. And the fact is, every one of those profiles want to see the process go faster, be simpler, right? And they all of them want a combination of high tech and high touch. Yeah. And invariably, the Millennials want it as much as anybody, if not more. And intuitively, that makes a lot of sense when you think about, for most Millennials, this is the first time they're doing this, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're very comfortable doing the research themselves, doing everything on the phone, putting the data in, letting it instantly kind of populate in. Right. But they want to engage, they want to understand how big is this transaction. It's an emotional purchase. How am I comfortable that's going to happen? So as much as anybody, they want a combination of the two. So what you really want is to provide an experience as a lender that allows the consumer to control their engagement. So when they want to engage, let them engage. When they want to do it on their own, let them do it on their own. And that's what everybody wants. I want it my way. Burger King used to say, let them have it their way, right?
So if the consumer wants to enter in all their data, if they want to take more control of the transaction, they're able to. It's there. They're able to get it their way. And if they want to be a little more hands-off, once they understand the process and feel comfortable and knowing that they have the tools to do all these things, this is what's going to make them say, hey, I'm going to choose this lender over this lender. Yeah,
exactly. And the fact is, you got to be prepared for it, because we've got this thing called the Millennial Tracker. As you said, there's about 30% of all loans in the U.S. are going across our platform, and so we started tracking, in all these different MSAs, across the country. Everybody wants to know, what are the Millennials doing? Everybody's kind of fixated on that. Obviously for a big reason, because they are going to be the future of the purchase market. But they're actually, it's not the future, it's happening now. I mean, we're seeing in some of the Midwest markets that the percentage of loans being done, almost 50% of them are being done by Millennials. It's a little bit lower here, in New York and on the coast, because availability, cost is higher, and so maybe it's down in the 20s, but they're doing it now. And I think we're very much primed as you think about that age band of the Millennials, 18 to 34, 36, whatever the number is now. The average Millennial that we're seeing buy right now is 29 and a half, something like that, okay? So we're at the front end of that curve. But if you look back, the biggest part of that curve, or that snake, is at 24, 25-year-olds. So that thing is coming, and it's going to be building up.
Fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. Great being here.
I'm Andrew Berman with the Mortgage News Network. Thank you for watching.
This is Mortgage News Network.